high drama happy with the shows that we saw? Well, let's kick this off with Marc. And my full review, which totally disagrees with Marc, will be on Facebook.
At WP Theater and Play Co-presenting, we have Munich, Medea, Happy Family, written by Corinne Jabber, directed by Lee Sunday Evans. It concerns two girls who became friends from around the age of 11, and one of them's family is very ex-German. The other is from a family of refugees, and the girl from the family of refugees, Alice, at first really liked going to Caroline, her girlfriend's home, because it seems to be orderly, a bit boring, but predictable. As the girls grow up, Alice becomes very involved with Corinne's father, who's a famous actor. Now, this happens when she's 16, and clearly the actor father is a pig and taking advantage of her. It also appears that the actor's daughter is sort of leery of her dad because his room was right next to hers. He would come into her room, climb into bed with her at night, and she didn't really feel comfortable with that. So it's really about how the girls' friendship changed over time and how the father's over-involvement complicated things. I think it's quite well written and well acted and well directed, so I gave it a happy face. However, it is disturbing.
At the new Haarlem Performing Arts Center, coming from the Oregon Shakespeare Festival and Yale Repertory production, is Between Two Knees, written by the 1491s and directed by Eric Ting. And the two knees, this is all Native American. And it's about the Wounded Knee that happened in 1890 and the Wounded Knee that happened in 1973 and all that happened in between to this one Native American family. And it's really very powerful, but it's very funny. But at the same time, it can get very sad and dark, but then funniness takes over. It reminded me of Vampire Cowboys. Unfortunately, there was a lot of strobe and flashlight, so I had to close my eyes, but I could hear the audience laughing and enjoying themselves. So I knew something really delightful was going on, but you've only got till tonight to see it. It closes tonight, and it's so much fun. And as a white person, you will really be amused even more, believe it or not. Major happy face. Sarah Gancher's Russian Troll Farm, a workplace comedy, is inspired by the actual transcripts from the Russian government-backed Internet Research Agency in the run-up to the 2016 election. Miss Gancher cleverly takes us behind the scenes as we see how the Russians managed to steal the election by focusing on 4 workers and their supervisor. Igor is a human automaton who doggedly sends out tweets, articles, and anything to stir up the Black voters in order to reach the highest numbers and win a microwave. Steve is violently pro-Russia and is happy to cause murder and mayhem to defeat any of his enemies, no matter where and who they might be. He also thinks he's God's gift to women. Nikolai is the office supervisor because his wife's father is a dangerous man in a high place. He believes in the screenwriter book that purports there are 13 story plots and uses them as a reference to get his lies across to the American public. Masha, who was a journalist, but then she became disillusioned with that, has joined them. She happens to have a background in fairy tales, which is very useful. Zhuba, their boss, makes sure they follow the guidelines found in the manual. Ironically, office politics are even stronger than world politics, as everyone jockeys for power and position and getting the job done the way they want. There is also plenty of sexual office intrigue to keep things even more interesting. It really is frightening to see how easy it is to manipulate people with the most ridiculous nonsense. The acting was so spot on that I believed all their intentions and beliefs and really felt that I was witnessing what the Russians did to us firsthand and why they felt justified to do so. This was scary good. It makes the future of theater dawn bright, but the state of the world is looming dark indeed. Happy face. I am so excited to have Tony Chase here, my colleague from Buffalo, who you may know as Anthony Chase with his television show called
Theater Talk. I had it before you had it in New York.
I know that's why I wasn't sure. I thought, wait, it's called Theater Talk. And then I thought, wait a minute, I don't want to confuse people or
Well,
confuse myself.
Michael's from Buffalo too, truth be told. Just FYI.
Oh, anyway, the reason I asked him to come on the show, I first wanted to dedicate the show to Chita Rivera because I mean losing her was just as bad as losing Stephen Sondheim, let's face it. And you had a personal connection with her, so you can really tell us wonderful Chita stories and really mourn her properly. And you can even tell us about that little pin that you're wearing.
Oh, it's coincidence because you just, said a second ago, but I'm still wearing the pin that was given to the mourners at her wake in her where she lived in West Nyack. It's that little guardian angel, and so we all received one of those in a very sweet, just as if it were your cousin at a funeral home with her priest, her local priest, doing a quick ceremony, and various of her Broadway friends, many of the dancers who had danced with her, and her, of course, her family, which was very meaningful. Very, very sad day, and you find yourself alternately happy to see people and then weeping uncontrollably. So it was that kind of an event.
Did you find out any surprises you didn't know about Chita?
No, I didn't. And I suppose, I wasn't, out there seeking. I feel very private in those circumstances, and I had my own friendship and memories of Chita, and not of of seeing her perform, of course, but I do not work in the theater. I'm not a dancer. I didn't, I'm not a producer, and a lot of people of that kind. My husband was particularly close, and he was the reason that we became friends with Chita, that we would show up anywhere she was performing. And so, she'd come off stage in New York or in Raleigh, North Carolina, or in Costa Mesa, California, or in Oklahoma City, and we would be there. But she would grab Javier, take him off in a corner. They would cuddle up on a sofa, and I wouldn't know what they were talking about.
How did you get to be friends in the first place? It's a wonderful story.
There's this friend that and then you remind yourself occasionally, this woman is the greatest living Broadway star. How in the world do I know her? How does she know me? Kind of crazy. And, it just seemed the most natural thing in the world to get married. And we did get married in her dressing room and she is the witness. She's the one who signed, she and Terrence McNally signed our marriage license. And it's like they're two different people. There is, I think she even wrote about that in her book, how she was two different people, that the professional Chita and the personal Dolores. And so there's a bit of that. And you just remind yourself, did that just happen? Did Chita just console me on the death of my mother? Even taking nieces and nephews, I took our niece and nephew to see Mystery of Edwin Drood, and Chita was playing Princess Puffer, and they were all excited to vote and all of that. And they were just, my nephew, particularly at the age of 11 or 12, just the most perverse thing in the world happened, that Chita was married, was the romantic couple with the teenage boy, and he, thrillingly announced that was even sicker than Peter and the Starcatchers, which he had also seen. But then they go backstage, and to them, even they, kids in the age of the internet, going backstage to Chita Rivera's dressing room. Yeah, right. And there's Stephanie J. Block on the stairs, and my niece was so young, and she just loved Stephanie J. Block. And then she said, oh, is she a wicked girl? And it's like, she's too young for that. She saw you in this. She loves you for Edwin Drood. That is how she knows you. But then, and it was a very final performance. But then to go into the dressing room, and on the car on the way home, my nephew very suspiciously asking, So how do you know her? How do you know her? Because they put it together. They saw her on Broadway. They saw audiences going berserk for this woman who then they met like she's an aunt or a neighbor in her dressing room. It's peculiar. It's peculiar to have had that kind of a relationship with somebody so adored.
But I think that's why you were such good friends, because she was Dolores. She was not Chita Rivera.
She never retired. She just sort of departed, which is tough. Because when you know somebody who's 91 years old, it's like, okay, we're not immortal. But for Chita, who is always so vital, I always thought it was always in the future. We have a few years left. Of course, we have a few years left. But we didn't. And so, now it's all a memory.
Donald Stephen Olson's The Christine Jorgensen Show shows shy Christine Jorgensen sent to Miles Bell a washed-up song and dance man to help her put together an act. For those who don't know, Christine Jorgensen was the first person to have a sex change operation in Denmark back in 1953, going from an ex-GI to an elegant, refined lady. Because of the novelty of the situation to most of the world, she became an instant celebrity. Her agent wanted to cash in on this notoriety, but she can't sing, dance, or tell jokes. After a rocky start, Miles agrees to try and shape her into an act. There are many clashes from these strong-willed people who know what is best for themselves, but not for each other. Can Miles turn this gawky, reluctant woman into a swan, much like My Fair Lady? Marc Nadler, as Miles Bell, can play the piano like nobody else. He's got that perfect blend of exasperation and admiration as he tries to coax her out of her shell and her fixed ideas of what she is capable of. Jesse James Keitel is stunning and just exudes that classic 50s air of a pearl-wearing conservative woman. Yet she has that steely determination of what is good for her, but the weight of the paparazzi chasing is wearing her down. Christine Jorgensen was quite remarkable to realize that she had the wrong body at birth and did something about it. This was unheard of back then. Jesse James Keitel captures this brilliantly. They both had something to prove. Will they be able to achieve what they both need? This is such a fascinating time capsule to go back and revisit, considering what is going on in today's time. Happy Face Plus. Donnie's Make Me Gorgeous is a true story of Kenneth Marlowe with additional material by Wade McCollum. Noah Miller saw this already with Wade McCollum and raved about it. I went back to see it with Darius Rose, also known as Jackie Cox. This was a story of triumphs and defeats, and through it all, Kenneth Marlowe kept reinventing himself to a herself. He had to deal with gangsters, cops, and the military. He met friends along the way like Candy and Duchess who helped him navigate the drag scene. Jackie Cox has this engaging stage presence that drew the whole audience into his hair-raising tale. Good thing he had this beautician skill to fall back on when life tried to knock him down. He was able to combine both his personalities in his answering service, Mr. Madam, which is the title of his book. Thank you, Donnie, for bringing this fascinating person to our attention, and Jackie Cox for bringing Marlowe to life. Major happy face.
Currently playing at the Hayes Theater is the second stage production of Brandon Jenkins's Appropriate, which is a darkly comic Southern Gothic style work about death, racism, families, and hoarding, which is always an interesting mix. It stars two great horror stars, Sarah Paulson as Tony, who has come to her late father Ray's old plantation house in Arkansas with her juvenile delinquent son Reese, to meet up with her brother Beau, Harry Stoll, a conservative lawyer with the requisite suburban housewife Rachel, and their two kids, Cassidy and Ainsley, and the estranged brother Frank, aka France, who brings along his bohemian free spirit girlfriend Trish, aka River, to go through the piles of clutter their late father amassed in his life. have an estate sale, and sell the house because they all want to get some money. And after a completely unexpected and shocking discovery surfaces among their father's possessions, the reunion takes a turn for the explosive and unleashes an escalating series of Sam Shepard-esque confrontations, crackling with viperish rage, loathing, bitterness, greed, and ultimately a form of redemption. It's also a brush with anti-Semitism tossed into the mix for good measure because it's the 21st century. The actors really give it their all. Tony is a seething, bubbling mix of bitterness and recrimination. Beau, a self-absorbed yuppie who convinces himself he is on the right side of history. Franz, a somewhat weak young man with some questionable choices in his past, while the secondary characters provide a Greek chorus of complaints, affirmations, demands, and distractions. Appropriate has been extended through March 3rd. I highly recommend seeing it. It is superbly acted. It is thought-provoking. It is simultaneously nuanced and over the top. It is gripping. It is funny. I give it a happy face plus.
Romina Paula's The Whole of Time uses Tennessee Williams' Glass Menagerie as a jumping off place to focus on a too close-knit family of a possibly alcoholic mother, Ursula, who knows how to have a good time, a brother, Lorenzo, who wants to escape, and a sister, Antonia, who wants to stay home. Lorenzo's friend from work, Maximiliano, enters this strange family. Their Mexican and Hungarian heritage is discussed with Frida Kahlo and a famous notorious Mexican singer with an unusual love song. Interesting bloodthirsty philosophies of life, or I should say death, are discussed. There are somewhat creepy incestuous undertones, and justifiable quirks swirl around in this fast-moving show. I didn't even have time to finish my palinka, this yummy Hungarian drink. It's alcoholic. Unlike Laura in Glass Menagerie, Antonio is much more strong-willed and has very valid reasons for staying at home. She doesn't need a Glass Menagerie. The mom hasn't given up on gentleman callers for herself, and Antonia is more the one with the imagination than Lorenzo, as Antonio spins various scenarios. I don't mind spending time with these very gifted actors, but the story got a bit too dark for me at times when the family members got a bit too intimate with each other. Happy face minus. Tennessee Williams' Night of the Iguana is about a disgraced priest, Shannon, who leads tours in Mexico. Right now, he is up to his troubles in a busload of Baptist female college ladies who do not take kindly to stopping at Costa Verde Hotel in Acapulco, run by Maxine, a lusty, hard-nosed businesswoman who has designs on Shannon.
Yeah, this recent revival takes place at the Signature Theater. It has very captivating performances, but I found it struggled with its pacing. The acting was definitely the highlight. Tim Daly was on stage for the full length of this show, playing Reverend Shannon. It was a nuanced portrayal of a man who was grappling with his faith and with loss. Daphne Rubin Vega portrays the hotel keeper. She brought a very playful and comical energy to the stage. The ensemble was just also equally as strong. They were creating a very believable and engaging group of characters. Even the background actors I was fixated on watching. There was German couples eating dinner in the back. Beowulf Borit, who's a Tony winner from last year's production of New York, brought his talents again with this set that transported us to the sweltering Mexican hotel. And Jeff Crotier's lighting really set the mood and atmosphere. And I thought, again, some scenes could have been tightened to maintain some of this momentum and engagement. I give it a mixed face.
Oh, I'll give it a mixed face too. New Victory is back at its old place with 360 All-Stars, which is filled with feats of hip-hop Australian street performance art daring do, starting with Heru Anwari doing breakdancing moves with his bike, never seen the like. Then came the B-Boys, Kid Columbia, Sati, and Gene Patterson doing flips and spins and some major moves. Basketball freestyler Bob Poffo did things with 5 basketballs that would make the Haarlem Globetrotters jealous. Daniel prized on the Rue Sear, that's a giant ring thing, was positively balletic and spun with such centrifugal force that I thought he'd spin himself down to China. Mira, our intrepid MC, spun beats and clever raps. Hip hop don't do it for millions, but for the children, and goodness gracious, gorgeous faces. While Gene Peterson, who founded 360 Stars, is quite the dexterous drummer. Quite frankly, this was not the show for people like me who suffer from vertigo or someone who gets seizures from strobes and constant dramatic lighting and projections. It's a shame as I had to keep my eyes closed a lot, but I could hear the delighted, shrieking audience to know they were impressed and entertained. Happy face minus. Kate Douglas's The Apiary is a bleak future where the bees are dying, which affects most of nature, including almonds. Gwen is a supervisor trying to get the bees to thrive. Helping her is the always cheerful Pilar. New worker Zora, who has a PhD and had previously worked at a fancy lab, wants to save the bees. She thinks she has found a rather drastic way to save them and gets Pilar to help her. How will Gwen react when she finds out? Can they do anything to save the bees at this point? This is definitely a WBE, weird but enjoyable play. The actors are so sincere in their desire to save the bees, but at what cost? I really enjoyed this short, fast-paced show, and I give it a happy face.
I completely agree with you, Eva. I did find it to kind of be strange. I felt parts of the plot jumped around and didn't give much lead up and context, but I think that's probably tough when it's dealing with the short runtime. I found it to be enjoyable for what is a 70-minute play. Very rare to come by those. But I had kind of a mixed face feeling toward it. The performances were great. I really enjoyed Taylor Schilling, who I know from Orange is the New Black. I enjoyed how the Queen Bee was portrayed through beautiful dance movement on stage. But yeah, overall, it was very quirky and felt like it jumped around a bunch for me. So I give it a mixed face.
Nina Conti is a ventriloquist par excellence. She brings out Monkey, and the audience goes apeshit. They banter back and forth. She seems to be talking at the same time as Monkey while laughing at his barbs. How does she do that? Since she titles this performance a dating show, she asks audience couples how they met. One couple met on an app and have been together for 14 years. He flies a plane, and she describes liking him because he had broad shoulders. Another couple had this long, involved story. They claim to make a long story short, but she observes, you like saying that, but not doing it. Then came the crux of the show, which was the most unique take on ventriloquism I have ever seen. She has these bottom half face masks with crazy, oversized, exaggerated mouths that she puts on people and connected to a control cord. So she is able to manipulate the lips to make them say anything. The most impressive thing was that these unsuspecting audience members were able to make their movements match whatever funny thing Nina comes up with. She also helped single people with speed dating with Monkey. She got under this black material and left Monkey to it. Coincidentally, most of them were professors. With the help of guitarist Becky Goodman, there was singing involved with the professors. And there was a moment where Nina and Monkey did reverse ventriloquism, where they switched parts and Monkey became the ventriloquist. Funny enough, I got there early and talked to audience members, and one of them ended up going for the speed dating and called himself Batman, which thrilled the crowd, so he got to participate in the song with the professors. Another audience member I talked to came all the way from Austin, Texas, just to see Nina Conti, and after seeing the show, I can see why. For a 9 p.m. show, I have never felt so much energy coming from the audience as we all shrieked with astonishment at this extremely creative and side-splittingly funny ventriloquist. A beyond happy face. And oh, as an added treat, I got a chance to interview Nina Conti, and the interview will be showing up on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Just didn't have time to put it here. But oh my God, I can't wait to talk to her.
After Midnight is a musical review that takes place during the Haarlem Renaissance. It uses mostly the music of Duke Ellington, along with Ted Koehler, Jimmy McHugh, Harold Arlen, and Cab Calloway, and with the poetry of Langston Hughes. It is beautifully, authentically, and stunningly choreographed by Dominic Kelly, who, along with Jen Bender, did the fast-paced direction. The ensemble cast is excellent. Standouts include the glorious and powerfully voiced Angela Burkett and James T. Lane, who not only sings, but is a very agile dancer. Another standout of this production are the glorious costumes of Azalea Fairley. This beautiful production of After Midnight runs through February
25th
at the Paper Mill Theater in very nearby Millburn, New Jersey. Happy, happy, happy face for After Midnight.
And now for theater listings, because our next show is March 10th and lots going on. Closing March 3rd is Encore's Jelly's List Jam at the New York City Center, Aristocrats at Irish Rep, Hotel Happy Houses on the Moon at 122cc. Closing March 9th is The White Chip at MCC Theater Space. I Love You So Much I Could Die at New York Theater Workshop. Spiritus Virgil's Dance at Rattlestick Theater. On the Set with Theda Bara. Transport Group and Lucille Hotel Theater at the Brick. And we'll talk about that on our next show. Marc and I just loved it. Closing March 10th, Sunset Baby at the Signature Theater. Jonah at the Roundabout Theater. The Laura Pells. 5, The Parody at Theater 5-5. Warrior Sister of Wu, Pan Asian Repertory Theater. And special events, February 24th at 7 p.m. in person or streamed live. Andre de Shields with Marc Shaiman celebrates the 40th anniversary of Haarlem Nocturne at 54 Below. February 29th at 7 p.m., Necromancers of the Public Domain, hosted by Ain Holiday, Queen of the Apes, is Broadway Racketeers at the Caveat. Staged reading of Joan Sorkin's Bordello musical as part of York Theater Developmental Reading, February 29th at 3 o'clock and March 1st. And March 6th through 9th, Richarda Abrams is doing Big Mama and Me at Episcopal Arts Actors Guild. Our next show is March 9th, and there's so much going on in between, so I might not have gotten everything.